I have a question for you. Do you live your life compartmentalized with one thing being the focus? Or do you live your life integrated with your identities and sort of everything else? I had a realization in therapy. I tend to have very profound realizations in therapy. My last therapy session, I had a realization that I now live my life as live. And you might be asking, what do you mean by that, live? You've always been live. What do you mean you live your life as live? And that is a question that I'm going to answer in today's video. Let's break this down a little bit more. In the past, I lived life based on different identities or different experiences driving the way I live my life, my perspective on life, how I interact with the world. For example, when I was in high school or when I was younger, teenager, experienced really bad mental health. And that drove a lot of how I interacted with the world and interacted with others and interacted with myself and the relationship I had with myself. So I was like the very depressed, socially anxious kid. Hard to make friends, hard to interact. And my head at the time was also very focused on doing well at school. And I saw school as life or death. Essentially, if I don't do well in high school, then the rest of my life is over because I won't get into uni, and then the rest of my life is doomed. And basically, high school is life or death. And that's how I lived my life. That's what drove a lot of my decisions. And one concrete example is I neglected my health for study because, again, I thought it would be life or death, and that's what I viewed the whole thing as. So I neglected my physical health, I neglected my mental health for the sake of grades and doing well at school. And while I forgot most of the things from school, that habit and the way I lived at that time still carried on into adulthood, and even now, doing a lot better than back then, but still, there's still remnants of that I'm trying to break out of, as in not neglect my health, setting boundaries, and all of that stuff. And the way I saw the world at the time was very pessimistic because of really bad depression, anxiety. I was very pessimistic. I experienced a lot of hopelessness and saw the world from a everything is bleak perspective and nothing can get better. And also very much black and white thinking and no consideration of grades. It's like it was all or nothing. So I saw the world as very bleak and was very anxious, so that made it really hard to connect with others and make friends and feel safe in my own body as well, because it was like my body was in like fight mode all the time. It was very hyper vigilant all the time, very hyper vigilant, a lot of cortisol, a lot of stress, very hard to sleep. It played into everything. And that's what drove that part. That's what sort of controlled that part of the mental health, bad mental health, controlled that period of my life essentially. And yeah. Next chapter. Next chapter would be after high school, going to uni. And the thing that I lived compartmentalized in a way, in terms of hyper focusing on, once again, grades, because at the time I was studying undergrad psych with the intention of becoming a clinical psychologist in future. And here in Australia, you need to have a 4-year undergraduate degree, 3 years of undergrad and a year of honors or graduate diploma, and then you can apply for like masters in psychology. Do well in school, do well at uni, so you can become a clinical psychologist. So I think that was very much career. Career was driving the wheel at the time, and I kept telling myself, I don't have time to date. I don't have time to date. I don't have time to explore my identity. I don't have time to connect with others in the world. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to engage in hobbies because I need to study to do well, to get high grades, to get into clinical psychology. And so compartmentalized with career being the focus and sort of neglecting different aspects and parts of my life. And it's actually during uni years that I started discovering that like sexuality and gender, that firstly it was like I'm not straight, and then after that it was like my subconscious was telling me, hey, you're not cis. And then I was scared, and I didn't allow myself to explore that, or that part of me to exist. It was very much shunned. I even shunned myself, being like, no, you're not, go away, leave me alone, for years, until it eventually sort of blew up my face, being like, you can't keep lying to yourself. But back to the video, it was like compartmentalized on career and doing well at school. And once again, neglected my health for uni because of the bad habits I had sort of developed when I was in high school, and I had not broken out of that cycle of taking care of my health and prioritizing health over uni, and that not doing as well as I want in uni is not life or death, and I did not have that mindset at the time. And it made it hard to do anything else because I was so focused on doing well at school that it was hard for me to focus on trying to do anything else at the same time, and excuse that I didn't have time to do other things. Then came 2020, after I graduated uni at the end of 2019, then came our good friend coronavirus. And that also came my good friend, the reality of being trans. And I was living my life compartmentalized based on COVID, and that's all of us, that's literally the entire world. So I won't focus on COVID too much because that's literally all of us. Compartmentalized on the trans journey and accepting that I'm trans and coming out as trans and then socially transitioning, and my perspectives was very much based on my trans identity, how I interacted with myself, how I interacted with the world, how I interacted with others, how I saw the world, what I chose to do with my life, what I chose to not do with my life, was all based on the fact that I am trans for like ages. Like that was, my life was compartmentalized, and the core of that was trans identity. It made it hard. I did date. I will get to dating. But it was a lot of figuring out who I am, how do I express myself, how do I feel safe in the world, how do I undo internalized transphobia that I've learned, unlearning garbage about myself that isn't true. And in a way, the year 2020, where COVID first hit and lockdown, in a way it was a saving grace for me, because with lockdowns, right, and I just came out at the end of 2019, started socially transitioning in February of 2020. The lockdown gave me space to understand myself, and I didn't have to interact with the world because we were all locked down because of COVID. And it actually worked out well for me. It gave me like a whole year to sit with these experiences and go to therapy to understand myself better, undo internalized transphobia, and start seeing myself in a different light and not hate myself so much. And also start figuring out, do I want to go on testosterone? What are the pros and cons? Do I want to fertilize my eggs? There was like so many questions. Also changing my name. There was so many different things that happened in 2020 that actually the COVID lockdowns gave me like space to actually do all that without having to go out into the world, essentially. I was able to be a hermit for a little bit and figure out myself, before going back into the world. And yeah, but yeah, I was compartmentalized. And then 2021 was still trans stuff because I was started testosterone in January 2021. Next year in January I hit 3 years on testosterone. Still compartmentalized. And then I started working in 2021. So a lot of my year, that period was working and getting used to full-time work and understanding what working feels like and what working 9 to 5, 5 days a week in an office is like, just getting familiar with that. Because prior to that, I have not worked ever in my life, and I've done a lot of volunteering, but I had not worked, like done paid work before. So that year was a lot of me still going through trans stuff and understanding myself with trans stuff and how to be trans in the workplace. How do I be trans in the world? Because again, 2020 I was very much locked down in my house as with literally the entire world. And then 2021 I started emerging again as someone who's come out as trans for a year, and then still trying to figure out how to interact with the world as a trans man. And when I went into my first workplace, I went in guns blazing because I was so passionate about trans advocacy, right? I didn't know boundaries. I didn't know to not shake the cage too much and just keep low key. I was very much out about being trans and like very passionate about trans education. I sent my team emails about my journey and stuff like that, which in hindsight was not the most ideal thing, but at the time I didn't really know about staying low-key, and I did all of that during that year because again the trans identity aspect was so at the forefront of how I lived my life, and so that was that influenced every decision I make about like how I went about living my life in the world essentially. And I did the same thing for 2022, like at the start of 2022, the start of 2022 as well. Now I'm gonna get into dating. When I first started dating, it was in August of 2021, met someone online, and that sort of, now I learned the term situationship, didn't work out in the end because the person didn't want to meet up in person and there was a cheating incident, and so I'm like, fuck it, and then I'm like, there's a deceased bee here and there's a bunch of ants crawling around it. I'm moving a little bit back. And then it didn't work out. I got really annoyed and that didn't work out. But at the time, that person was the center of my life. Like, I think I'm a hopeless romantic. So I was very much in love, and I was also very dependent on this person, and that drove how I lived my life at that time. It was like this person was the core, it was the center of everything. And my life revolved around this person. Not this person is part of my life, but my life doesn't revolve around this person. At the time, my life revolved around this person. And when it didn't work out, very fiddly, as you can tell, I was very crushed. Then the more long-term relationship I had was start of last year, 2022. That was also very much the core of my life. Like the trans stuff, it was still there. It wasn't like calm as it is now. The trans stuff was still there. But it wasn't as prominent as when I first came out. By that point, at the start of last year, I've already been 1 year on testosterone. And the next step for me was top surgery. So I was working through that. So trans stuff did occupy pretty much a good amount of space. Also working. And then I went guns blazing in my new, at that workplace, which was a new workplace. I went in guns blazing as well. Because it was an LGBT workplace, but also that workplace didn't end so well because not nice things happened. I went guns blazing. I was still working through trans stuff, and I was in a new relationship with this person was in person, not like just online, so in person. And that was what I lived my life around. And in hindsight, I had neglected a lot of things for work and for that relationship. So the really work and relationship took out 90% of my energy and my time. And I sort of neglected seeing friends. I'm not saying I never saw them, but I didn't see them as much as I usually would, and I didn't see them as much as I would like now in hindsight. And my sort of independence was thrown out the window with the relationship. Because I wasn't confident with boundaries. I didn't assert boundaries, I didn't set boundaries. There was a lot of self-neglect. There was a lot of compromise and self-neglect. The deceased bee and all the ants are still bothering me. A lot of self-neglect. And so I felt like I lost a lot of my individuality because I'm a very independent person and I like doing a lot of things. And in a way that a relationship held me back. But the point of this segment in this video is it was like my life revolved around that relationship and work, and it taught me a lot, but and it's definitely helped me become the person I am today. And I'm going to get to what I mean by now. It is not compartmentalized, but it's all integrated, and I will get to that right now. So I'm going to go back to the start, the point I made at the start of this video about living as just live and not compartmentalized. And sorry, 1 second. Processing, reflecting on what was actually discussed in therapy. Looks like I'm doing a pull-up, but I'm not. This thing's actually rotating, so I'm just... fun fact about me is I like to fiddle and I don't like sitting still, and when I move or do something else while talking, it actually helps me focus. And then it's the same thing with listening to other people. When I do something else and listen at the same time, I focus better than just sitting still and doing nothing and trying to listen to someone. What do I mean by integrated? Now, I don't live my life with a certain defining identity driving it or certain experience driving my life. So in high school, it was like I lived as the depressed and anxious kid, and that was what I lived my life off. And the experience the experiences that it encompassed drove my life. Uni was also it was more like the career-driven, I want to get into clinical psych mindset. And the version of me that's like, clinical psych, let's go. And that was like the forefront of everything. Then it was working, full-time work, doing well at work. The super career-focused guy, that drove my life. And also during that time was the trans experiences. That drove my life for like a few years. It was like the forefront of everything. I lived my life as the trans guy. I didn't live my life as Lev. I lived my life as the trans guy. I went out around saying, I'm Lev, I'm a trans guy, not just say, oh, hey, I'm Lev. It was like, I always introduced it as, I'm Lev, I'm a trans guy, literally everywhere I go. I'm Lev, I'm the trans guy, I'm the trans guy. I live my life as the trans guy. And then, actually, I forgot to mention before, early in the year when I was diagnosed with autism, I lived as the autistic guy. So I'm like, I'm the autistic guy, and I live my life allowing autism and autistic experiences to sort of define what I do, what I don't do, and the way I saw myself and the way I saw the world. So I was living as the autistic guy. But now, I'm not living as any of these independent identities separately. I'm living with all my different identities and all the different life experiences I have as integrated. So I am Lev, And all these different identities, like I'm trans, I'm gay, I'm autistic, I like mental health, I want to do paramedics, all of this is all integrated with live at the center, and all of these things around live, not one individual thing being at the forefront and live being on the side like this and just living around it, if that makes sense. And I'm making space for all of this. I also like music, I like drumming, I'm learning guitar, I started swimming, like I signed up for swimming lessons. Today was my first swimming lesson. By the time this video is posted, I would have done a few more swimming lessons. Like now I don't live my life as, oh, the swimming guy, the noob swimmer who's learning how to swim, like, or the noob guitarist who's learning how to play guitar. Like that's not me. That's a part of my lived experience and that's what I'm doing, but that's not me, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's all integrated. I make space for it. Of course, I can't do everything in one day, and sometimes certain things take a back seat while certain things take a front seat. Like for now, like right now, I'm currently unemployed and I don't have a job and I'm just working on myself and working on my mental health. So that's taking a back seat, but that's not completely eliminated from the picture. And the things that take up a bit of space now are swimming lessons, because I'm starting to learn how to swim. So that's sort of something I'm putting my energy and attention into, and also playing guitar, and also just working on my self-esteem is another part of that. But it's all like divided in a way, and sometimes things get more time and attention than other things naturally, because we only have a limited amount of time and energy in one day. But the ultimate point is, I'm not living compartmentalized with one specific experience or one specific identity driving how I live my life, all my decisions that I make, what I choose to do, what I choose not to do, etc. Like when I start dating again in future, that's just going to be a part of me, like my experience. It's not going to be like dating takes up 90% of my space while everything else is neglected. Like that's not going to happen. I didn't know where to put my camera for this outro shot, and I was trying to do a different angle. So here we are. I'm resting it on a spiderweb climbing playground prop thing. That's all I had for this video. It's taken a while to get to this point, and it's taken a lot of work to get to this point, but I'm glad to have gone through all those experiences to help me get to this point and not live so compartmentalized and just live integrated. So I'm living as left now, and it's a joyous moment to have reached, like a joyous milestone to have reached. Thank you for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.